So there's been all of these things that have been kind of swirling and ebbing and flowing over the last year. And it's like, some of it is really exciting and some of it is presenting opportunities that I'm really anxious in a good way for. But there's also that unknown that comes with that. And it's terrifying. And it's like, okay, this is where I've built my life. Do I have to change this? Does something else going to change? And so just trying to control the things that I can control, and then letting everything else just kind of flow, breathe it out, and just like let it go. It's like, that has been one of the biggest challenges of the last year. But it's also, again, it's that like darkness that I feel like I've been kind of growing out of. And this year has probably been, I would say, probably the most transformative year that I've had since I started running. And it hasn't necessarily come with the best performances, and it's actually come with probably some of my worst, but I can still see glimmers in there. And I know that there's still something that's growing back and that's going to come through.
That was professional marathoner Matt Llano, and this is the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to episode 143, the YTP. For almost 3 years now, we've been sharing stories of people looking, finding, and living their purpose. It is my experience in my own life and through hearing the stories of our guests that this purposeful path can get dicey and scary and messy. But I am certain that those unsteady times are perfectly expressed so that we may up-level ourselves to meet our dreams. And today's guest is no exception to the rules of powerful, purposeful living. Matt Llano is a super fast marathoner posted up in Flagstaff, Arizona under the guidance of Ryan Hall, who, if you've been living under a rock, is the fastest half and full marathoner in U.S. history. It won't take long for you to become a Matt Llano fan. I just love this guy. And I feel like when we walked away from this interview that we had a new best friend in our lives because we just go so deep. And Matt is so open and vulnerable with the information that he shares today. And vulnerability is something that he really wants to encourage other athletes to explore and embrace so that we don't have to be so paranoid and closed up about the things we're moving through in our life. He has absolutely lived the repercussions of not living a vulnerable, open life. And he did that up until his 21st birthday when he gave himself the greatest gift by coming out to his aunt. This initial conversation allowed Matt to allow himself to live his truth one person at a time, and in the process has become a role model for so many who are struggling with their place here on earth. Matt is the world's first openly gay professional runner, and I think it's not so coincidental that a month after opening his heart, he ran a smokin' fast 101 half marathon. Just so we're clear, that's a 4:39 pace per mile. He has a marathon PR of 2:12:28, and he's putting in the work every day, physically and mentally, to uncover the Matt who has already tackled his dream of breaking the 2:10 barrier. Most recently, Matt came in second at the California International Marathon with a 2:13, which qualified him for the Olympic trials next year. He was an All-American in cross country at the University of Richmond, and I think you will agree after listening to this conversation that his best days are yet to come. I'm certain that not only will we see him at the starting line of the 2020 Olympics, but that all who follow this gem of a guy will be seeing his sub-2:10 dreams come sooner than later. As his coach Ryan has told him, as BJ also tells him in this convo, as I believe, and as Matt also believes, it's already done. It's just execution from this point to give the physical reality time to catch up. Before we jump in, I want to thank Kat for becoming our latest Patreon supporter. If you haven't seen it already, I put up a video, you guys, for a Mexicali casserole that took 11 minutes for me to prep. I threw it in the oven later and it took about 40 minutes to cook, but it's super easy. I did it on a really busy day just to show you that you can take a break. You can throw some love and high vibe food into a casserole dish and create something super delicious that will feed you for multiple days. And on that note, I think this high vibe convo will be feeding all of us and our inspiration for the days to come. So without further ado, I give you one of the fastest dudes on the road right now, an open, powerful guy who is realizing that his existence on this earth does not have to be lived within limits. Matt Llano.
this woman that I coach who's coming off of a labral surgery similar to mine, actually, and which I think was why she kind of lined up with me to begin with. But she texted me the other day. It was like her first run over an hour, and she was so excited. And it was like I kind of took it a little bit for granted when I wrote it for her. But then when I got that text from her, and she was like, I'm telling you, over the moon, excited about running over an hour. And it was just really good to kind of reset my perspective on it, because I have athletes who've run, 2:30 or sub 2:30 for the marathon, and it's like, and then others that are just trying to run a 5K, and just like this whole scope of athletes. And sometimes I think it can be easy to get lost in what the people around you have done and like what kind of your norm is, and then you see someone who has just completely different goals but equally valid and equally like transformative. And for her, it was a really big moment. So it was kind of a cool thing to like to see that through her, and to like take it a little bit less for granted, to try to take it a little bit less
like
for granted.
You just didn't know what you were gifting her in that moment.
I didn't.
Like,
I really had no idea. I really didn't. And she was just like, this is the best Christmas present, and the, like New Year. And it was awesome. It was really cool.
And I don't think you can plan that, right? You
Yeah.
can't plan it. It's just in its simplest essence, you just doing your job and letting things unfold, and okay, this is the next logical step for her. And then for her, it's like a life transformative workout.
Yeah. For her, it was this big like benchmark of something that she had been trying to achieve for however long. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is just logical. We've been building up, trying to run longer, trying to sustain fitness, build aerobic fitness and build all these things. And then I just didn't realize what a barrier that was for her until she broke through it. And then I don't know if she realized it either. I don't know if she saw it beforehand and was like, an hour, I don't know. Like, we didn't talk specifically about that. I should ask her that, actually. But yeah, anyway, I don't.
You kind of referenced this, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I took away from it was like, it's so much more than the numbers, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, it's logically, this is her build, and so logically, this is where she needs to go. But it is so much more than the numbers and the paces and the workouts. Like, it's the experience that you're having.
Yeah.
It really is that journey that we all talk
Right.
about. And when I hear people say, like, I'm just doing a 5, like, I'm not doing what you're doing, I'm just doing a 5K. I always
all the
try and
time,
just,
and it makes my skin crawl.
I try and just swoop up underneath them and go, no, like, it's never just anything, because it's all relative. What I do is very worthy. What you do is very worthy. What BJ does is very worthy in his sport, in life. And I think we're just, on paper, we're separated by paces and numbers, and if it's our professional career or not. The worthiness factor is, I think it's across the board. Like, we are all worthy of this, whether it is a 5K or your first 100-miler or your first Ironman, whatever it is, like, you're worthy of doing it. If it's placed on your heart, I think you have to pursue it.
Yeah.
You have to pursue it. Does that resonate with you? Like, if something's placed on your heart, like, if you don't pursue it, or, it will just get bigger and bigger until you do?
Yeah, that's kind of, that's kind of how I got into running to begin with. It was like, I started it in high school to stay in shape for soccer, actually, because I was a soccer player for, gosh, I don't even know, 12 years, 13 years or something, just a long time. And I was on a travel team that was super competitive, and the coach was like, okay, you have to do something between the fall and the spring season to stay fit, stay active. And I was like, I guess I'll run. And so I ran indoor track, and then I just fell in love with it. And I was a sprinter at the time, so I was not very good. But I just fell in love with it. And then I really liked the coach. I liked the team. I liked the atmosphere. And it just kind of took over, like, what I was feeling in terms of sports, because I always played a bunch of sports growing up. Swimming, basketball, baseball, like, just a whole bunch of stuff. And running was the one that really kind of captivated me the most. And I shifted all the other stuff away, and it just, like, I just kind of let it envelop my, I don't know, everything. And then it's now become this big thing where it's like, I went from running in high school to college and now professional. And it's like, I can't imagine I mean, I'm sure I could have been passionate somewhere else too, but I can't imagine what else that might have been that would have taken me like where running has taken me, not only physically, but like just mentally, spiritually. Like I'm not really a religious person, but just I feel like the feelings that I get from running out on a trail or even on a road or a track are something that like I've not found anywhere else. Like I haven't found anything else that gives me that
Joy.
that same feeling. And it's not just joy, but it's like there's so many other emotions that come with it. And it's just, I don't know. I'm really thankful that I found it when I did and that I had people around me that nurtured it and didn't like push me away from it. And I would say on the contrary, actually drew me more into it. And it's kind of cool. Randomly, I got a text from my high school coach yesterday, who I haven't spoken with in. We text maybe once a year, like it's very rare. But he happened to text me yesterday, and it's funny now that we're having this conversation. But he was one of the ones that I really owe a lot of it to because he just drew me in, and like he's an Ironman triathlete. He has competed in Kona a bunch of times, and there was something about his spirit that I loved when I was in high school, and like his tenacity, and like he was very much like very straight edge. He was a teacher at our school, and I had him for one of my classes, and he was just, I always liked how disciplined he was, and like I feel like he instilled a lot of that in me very early on, and that has, I think, served me well since 2002 or whenever I started high school.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Discipline is it's core.
Yeah.
It's a core piece of all of this. And, when you mention like, spiritually, it's our essence is, we are spirit, right? And I'm not talking about religion because I think religion is very different from spirituality.
I agree.
Spirituality to me has no walls. It's got no borders. It's got no labels. And that's what I consider myself to be. And if I assign myself to anything, it would be yoga, and just that as my lifestyle and all the principles of yoga, because they resonate, like running resonated with you. It resonates to me to live a life of truthfulness and non-harming and hoarding and all those things. I'm like, oh, all that stuff makes sense. And it kind of seems like it leads to a simple, really valuable life, but it requires discipline. And, when we are out there and we're running, and it's just us, I think that it opens up this pathway to really, you hear it all the time, right? People say that running is their meditation, running is their church, whatever it may be. But I think what's underneath that is getting a deeper connection with who we are.
Yeah.
Because sport will show you who you are. It will show you what's brewing under the surface, and it will bring out your best, and it will bring out your shadow. And I don't want to say your worst, because we need that.
I like that distinction.
Yeah, we need that light and dark. We need it. We need the contrast, because the contrast is what allows us to grow. Without the right, like those workouts that you just nail and you're like, oh my God, I could have gone all day. Are we really growing, or is it kind of like the universe throwing us a bone? Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation to have, and you do hear a lot of people talk about like the struggle is when like that's when you're really getting stronger, and that's when you're like you're talking about, that's when you're finding who you are. That's when you're finding the extra couple minutes in a marathon or in a 10K or like that's where you're finding it. I work with Ryan Hall now as my coach, and he has been big on that lately. In a couple of the hard workouts that I had in this last marathon buildup that I did in the fall, there were a few that I was like struggling towards the end because his training is just really challenging and very different from what I was doing before. And he would always remind me like, this is where you're growing. Like when you want to stop, and I won't let you, and which is really, I don't really want to stop, but it's like, cause I'm never one to like cut a workout short. I'm like, I want to do another one. I want to push again, even if I have to stop, regroup and get back on it. But anyway, he's like, this is where you're finding that sub 210 that I've been aiming for years. And he's like, this is where it's going to happen. This is where it's going to come together. And it's just, I really like your wording of it as your shadow, not your worst.
No,
Yeah.
And I think that's like the worst, like it's negative. And I don't think so. I mean, we all have it. I've seen my shadow self. It's fierce.
Yeah.
It's fierce.
And it's the words we use too. So if we're saying worst and bad, and that stuff starts to build up energy around us. So when we can put our little twist on it, like see it as opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to grow. Ryan Hall has you growing in all these instances. And when you said you struggle, like you in those moments when you're struggling, in those change of workouts, is it a physical struggle or is it that mental struggle that you haven't done these workouts before and maybe you're falling upon
It's
an old pattern?
It's been a kind of a combination of a couple things for me. In this last year, I've had some, not only some physical stuff I had surgery a couple times in 2016. And so coming back from that that obviously presents physical challenges, but I also left the training group I was part of. I have a new coach, I have new teammates, and most of the running that I do now is on my own, which is not a bad thing. But I don't know if this is something you guys wanted to talk or we're going to talk about at some point or not, but I actually just left Hoka. I'm not with Hoka anymore. So that's presented challenges. And so there's been all of these things that have been kind of swirling and ebbing and flowing over the last year. And it's like, some of it is really exciting and some of it is presenting opportunities that I'm really anxious in a good way for. But there's also that unknown that comes with that. And it's terrifying. And it's like, okay, this is where I've built my life. Do I have to change this? Does something else going to change? And so just trying to control the things that I can control, and then letting everything else just kind of flow, breathe it out, and just like let it go. It's like, that has been one of the biggest challenges of the last year. But it's also, again, it's that like darkness that I feel like I've been kind of growing out of. And this year has probably been, I would say, probably the most transformative year that I've had since I started running. And it hasn't necessarily come with the best performances, and it's actually come with probably some of my worst, but I can still see glimmers in there. And I know that there's still something that's growing back and that's going to come through. And, so just kind of navigating all of that has been challenging. And I think to bring this whole thing kind of full circle, like when we're out and doing a workout on our own, on the road or wherever it might be, like those are the moments where you kind of expose what's really deep down in here. And I, for years and years and years in different areas of my life, I just pushed things down and didn't let them come through. And so I tend to have a habit of doing that. But this is kind of where I'm just trying to let it come back up and let it out. And it's a good feeling to kind of be letting go of some of these things that have been weighing me down and resetting, like, I don't know, recalibrating my system and kind of getting back to the pure joy of why I started doing this. And that's kind of like why I was talking before about when I see my dog smiling when she's running. And it's like, that is I feel like so many people will probably be like, oh, that's kind of silly. But it's, for me, when I see her, and I have this leash that I tether to my waist, and she just runs next to me so she can run freely. And she just looks up at me and I look down at her and we're both just smiling. And I'm like, this is why I started doing it. Because it makes me feel like this.
It's connection.
Total connection. And so in all of these challenges of the last year, like that's what I've been focusing on. I've been running with her more than I have since I got her a couple years ago. And it's been fun to just like reconnect even with myself and try to be more patient with myself and just more present with myself, where I think I lost that for a couple years, where you get caught up in, like we were talking about, you get caught up in the numbers and the performances and, am I improving? Am I getting like the workout, this workout, the strength workout, the pool, like all these other things. And it gets like, and they're fun. It's fun to piece all those puzzle pieces together and figure out how to make it all work. But then there's also a stress that comes with that, and just being able to let go of it and just be like, I'm running today just because I can and because I want to. And I think I saw recently an interview with Shalane Flanagan, and she talked about the distinction, or maybe it was I was listening to her on a podcast or on an app or something, but she talked about the distinction between I have to go run and I get to go run and I want to go run. And it was such a light bulb, like aha moment for me. And I've tried to change, because I do the same thing. Like, you have friends that want to go to dinner or something and I have to run. And it's like, but I really want to do it. I want to do it. But just the way that I word it even.
And isn't it weird, because there's almost like this social programming, like your friends are saying, come on to dinner with us. And you say, no, I get to run.
Right.
And it's kind of awkward and weird. Like,
Yeah.
well, you want to go run more than you want to come to dinner. Like, there's this weird social programming that we have around words. And it's like, the only weird thing about our social programming is that we're totally programmed to live in lack and to say, oh, I'm so surprised that I actually got the time that I wanted. Or, whereas we can rewire and we can say, I get to get up today. I get to go into my fridge that's full of food and I get to choose something to eat and I get to make it. As opposed to, oh, I have to make dinner now.
Yeah.
I have to make breakfast. I have to do this. I have to do that. It's like, I get to do it. And it for me, it brings back that just bold reminder that when I get to do something, it's because it's a gift. I get to do it.
And it's so easy to forget that, because so much of it's just the normal, that people talk about it. That's how we tend to live our lives.
It's the easy way. It's and we've been on this lazy, it's like almost lazy.
Yeah, we identified this in the car the other day. So
what was it? Oh, because one of the questions we had on our podcast was, how do I deal with the mental anguish of trying to get through a hard workout? How do I deal with it? And for me, I struggle with the word deal, because it feels like you have to do something, like you have to deal with it. But we realize that word is sort of lazy. Like, let's dive deeper into what you're dealing with.
Yeah, like we were really fleshing it out in the car the other night when we were driving to Arizona.
So
we were
what can we replace
so
deal
what is
with?
it? Like, what is deal? Like, what is it? How does it make you feel? Like, what is it? Like, this is what we do. There's our conversations. And BJ just goes, deal's lazy. It's lazy. It's like, I got to deal with this now. But what if you just stood up and you embraced it, right? Like, high level of like spiritual intelligence is like to welcome all things. What if we started to reprogram all this social programming where we welcomed all things? Where we weren't so quick to be like, that was a bad workout, that was a good workout, that was my worst self, that was my best self. And every time we do that, we put ourselves in a box. We just when we label things, we just put ourselves in this little box. And it seems to me like the universe has like unwrapped your box this year, and you're going through all, like you said, transformative. And we cannot transform without having the light and the dark.
Oh,
like
for sure.
We're going to have both of those. So like people might look at like, oh, transformation. Well, transformation can be a real pain in the ass. It's hard.
Yeah, they may look at your workouts on paper and be like, wow, this year, like they're not your ideal workouts. Oh, he made a bad decision. Like he's moving. But that is the contrast. That's what needs to happen before you can up level. Right. You don't want to get back to the same level. Like you want to go. You
gotta to up level. You gotta get the snowplow, and you gotta plow all that stuff that's been in the way of the sub 210. And I think that's what this year is getting you ready for.
I'm 100% finding it. And it's been cool to witness it even within myself. And I have some moments where I step back and I'm like, I didn't think that I could have done that 3 months ago. And then, Ryan writes something on the schedule, and it's just, that's what he believes I can do. And then in turn, I have to, readjust my own internal dialogue to believe that I can do it. And then I do it. And I'm like, why did I ever doubt myself? Right. And then it's just and it's like this, it's been this really fun kind of ping pong the last couple months where he writes a workout and I'm like, well, okay. and then It's like, and then I'll go do it, and it's faster than what he prescribed, and it comes easily. They don't all come easily, but some of them do, and it's like, oh, that was like such a pleasant surprise, and it's nice to have those moments mixed in when, like I've talked about, when so much of the last year has just been like, I just feel like I'm getting kicked at times, and it's just like, oh man, like I just need a break, and I'm starting to get them, and it's really encouraging, and I think it just I feed on that energy, and I feed on the positivity of it and the encouragement, and I just feel like I'm getting back to finding again, like why I started doing this. And when I kind of get back to that, that's when I tend to have these moments where I'm like, okay, a couple weeks ago, I was maybe a little bit down in the dumps, but now I've like thought about, I don't know, one aspect or another that has gotten me into the sport or that has kept me in the sport, or moments where I thought about quitting and then reassessed and I was like, no, I want to do this. I get to do this. That conversation we were just having, like, I have had injury struggles, but for the most part, I've been like pretty healthy most of my career. And not a lot of people can say that. And not a lot of people can come back from some of the stuff that I've had and do what they love. And here's my dog with a squeaky toy.
Oh my God, she's amazing. She's
and she
so
will
amazing.
squeak it too.
She's making some. Listen, we love the dog background noise. You want to bring your water in here too, honey?
But yeah, I think that finding, just like we've been talking about, like finding those moments of light when we think that we're in total darkness, that's what has gotten me through. And then I choose to focus on, even if they're really brief, I choose to focus on those instead of this overwhelming darkness that I might have been feeling for however long. It's like, well, I found this one thing that gives me hope, and I'm going to focus on that. I choose that as like my light rather than this massive dark over here.
Right. And that's like, I mean, if you look at like universal law, I mean, basically what you're practicing there is law of attraction. What do you want to attract into your life? Because what you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on the low vibe, the darkness, then you are going to create more situations in your life to feel that way. But if you say, oh, I can see, like, it is the tiniest little speck of light that's actually, it's not even sustained, it's just flashing. But if you can catch it when it flashes, like, that's gonna make huge gains, not only in developing, like widening out those neural pathways in your brain, but creating more situations in your life for you to feel that way. Because if we're down here, we're blocking out the light. If we're in the dark, we're right. When we walk into a dark room and we flip the switch, there's no more darkness. It's the same thing in what we choose to believe in and where we choose to put our focus. And it's something that I was listening to an interview with you with Tina Muir, and you were talking about that, and I was like, oh my God, he totally gets it. Like, you're focusing on what feels good. You're focusing on the essence of the love that you have for running. You're focusing on the joy and the connection that you feel when you run with Harlow. Like, and that was what got you into the sport. And the overall thing that I'm feeling from you that is really high level, awesome stuff, is that you're allowing. So instead of stuffing into the vault, which I know you've done, and it doesn't work that well. It just doesn't. It gets really
you can get away
crowded.
with it for a little while, but then
it gets super crowded in there. And BJ was a vault stuffer. I think I was a little bit of a vault stuffer, but I was too explosive to keep it in.
So your change from vault to open it up was like a quick flip.
Yeah, mine was like there was like a bomb going off in the vault.
I had to get a wedge in there.
Oh yeah,
it took a while.
Oh yeah,
like a crowbar.
That's me too. Yeah.
But the allowing is so amazing because you're not resisting. When we allow, we don't resist. When we're resisting, we're pushing against, and we're saying, like, this gift, this moment that I'm living is not good enough. I'm pushing against this. But when we just say, all right, I'm in the muck, like I'm in the shit, and I'm just gonna be there. And I think that's some people, I think they get confused with like positive self-talk. Like, how do I always be positive? And it's like, no. Please don't ever think you always have to be positive, because you might need a day of like, I need like a 3-hour nap and I don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But it's, maybe in those times of darkness, maybe you can make a list of what you're grateful for, or you can remember that all your limbs are working, and and like your history of injury does not have to be your future. You could look at that as like, oh, that was just strengthening me for what's coming, and everything that's coming. If you keep this attitude, is everything you've ever dreamed of and more, because there's more in store for you that we have, like, you probably haven't even gotten your head around yet. But it's really exciting if you just keep allowing and letting it roll in. The physical takes a little time to catch up, but it's starting to catch up and you're seeing it. And you're seeing it by doing those crazy workouts and being like, oh my God, I completed that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think, and it's a cool transformation to see too, because it hasn't been just, like you're talking about, it hasn't been just a physical transformation for me. It's been, and that's where I think if I can find a silver lining from an injury like the ones that I had in 2016, it would be that it forced some major transformation in my mindset, in relationships, in just a lot of different ways other than the physical. And I think for so long, all I thought about was physical. I thought about, what can I do? How many hours a night can I sleep in order to do well in this workout, in this race, in this performance? What can I put in my body? What can I do out on the roads, out on the trails? What are all these external things that I can do? And I never took a moment to really consider like what I could do between my ears.
Oh, yeah.
And that was something that, even if it wasn't necessarily at first an intentional thing that I was trying to discover, I think that was something that I just kind of happened upon through the injury, because I couldn't train the way that I wanted to. And I would find myself kind of down in the dumps. I'd find myself like kind of depressed. But what it forced me to do was to, like, I had to get through that somehow. And it forced me to grow in a way that I'm not sure that I would have had the injury not happened.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of, and it's a weird thing to
100%.
think about, because it's like,
it's the contrast.
Yeah.
It's like you had to be taken down to your knees in order to level up.
And there were probably signs before that. Maybe signs we saw, maybe signs you didn't see, but it's like going to continue to knock until you get it.
Yeah.
Until you wake up. And it'll take you super far down. But if you're not open like you are, like being open to what could possibly happen, like, okay, so I'm in the worst scenario possible. Like, I can't train right now. What can I do? Right? You're going to go down that dark hole. If you don't wake up, man, it's going to continue to get like super dark. So when you can begin to see the light, you can begin to see what opportunities are in front of you. All that stuff, you realize there's a purpose. There's a purpose. And sometimes you need to be shaken up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to be kicked around a bit. And and then maybe I'm speaking from experience. But yeah, sometimes you need to be forced. Some people need to be forced. Pain, they say, is the true motivator of change. So whether that's physical, emotional, whatever, that's when we seriously begin to up level.
yeah.
Do you remember like a specific moment where it was pretty dark and you were...
There's one, so in the second, I had 3 surgeries in 2016. The first one was basically all of my core muscles were just tearing. And so I had surgery to correct that. And then the second one was a labral tear. And then like a kind of a re-exploration of what the first surgery was. And I can remember coming off of the labral tear surgery, and it was a long, slow build where I was like walking a minute at a time. Eventually I was running a minute at a time. And I can remember one of the first runs that I did right from my house here up into Fort Tuthill, which is maybe a mile from here. And I was about a mile in, and I was like, and it was my first, this is important, I guess. It was my first continuous run of like 2 or 3 miles. And I remember thinking, I don't know if I have it anymore. Like, I don't know if I still have the passion to do it. I don't know if I'm physically capable of doing it. I don't know if I have the mental fortitude to get through like all of this rehab and whatever the next 6 months is going to bring, I don't know if I have it anymore. And I stopped for a minute on the side of the road, and I literally just like sat on a log, and I was like just contemplating. It's just one of those weird moments. Like I was just contemplating my life. And I was like, not regretting decisions that I had made, but I was just processing it all in this one moment. And I was like, I've done all these things that have brought me to here, and maybe this is telling me that I'm supposed to go a different way now. And so I would kind of like let that resonate for a little bit. I finished the run, and I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was shortly after that. I was like, no, this is like, and it just took that moment of reflection for me to think about what I could be giving up. And for me, that's, it was relationships, it's goals, it's these ambitions that I've worked for since I was 14, 15 years old, and just all these things that I want to do. And I thought about losing all of that, and I was like, oh no, and it was right there. It was like the flip of a switch, and it was like, I'm going to come back from this. I'm going to be better from it. This is not the end of my story. This is like just the next chapter in the book. And it was after that I started to make some tweaks here and there. I started working on mental stuff. If you look at my bookshelf right now, it's like there's an interesting read over there on my nightstand too. It's just I started making all these changes and started realizing a little bit, maybe I did get lazy. Like maybe it was that I was dealing with things just kind of floating along, and I was like, it needs to be more intentional for me. And that's what I'm learning. And that's what I kind of learned through that process of that injury, and starting 2017, like not running for 6 months, and then coming back. And at the end of 2017, I ran a 2:13 marathon from like nothing. And so it's like, okay, some of those changes might have helped a little bit. Maybe they were like starting to work.
Yeah.
And even now, like, even though 2018 wasn't quite the year that I wanted, like, I know that there's this light that I'm moving towards, and I feel confident that I'm on the right track now.
Yeah.
And that some of these things that have happened have kind of like nudged me in that direction.
Yeah.
And just kind of let me figure out what am I gonna accept in, what am I gonna maybe move on from, and how am I gonna kind of help to guide myself kind of in unison with like whatever is being kind of offered to me.
Yeah. And it's this balance of like being tenacious as hell, right? And being very disciplined, but then also softening to receive and allow.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And that's hard. That's not always, that's not
mastery.
an easy thing to do.
That's mastery. Yeah. That's, I mean, for me, like, that's where I want to go in life.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a master of like living this life.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a master at it. And I know that that's going to come with I got to get a lot of stuff cleared out of the way. And that will just come. It'll just show up. And then it's, what are you going to do in that moment when it shows up? That really determines what that next moment's going to look like, and what the moment after that is going to look like. And taking time to reflect. You know, this calendar, part of the calendar year, is actually a really nice time if people feel like they need that permission or that directive to reflect. You know, how do you feel when you get up and you go to work in the morning? Does it light you up, or are you just going through the motions? Because I really don't believe that we were put on this earth to go through the motions. Yeah. We are way more than that. We are so much more. We are that joy that you talk about. Like, we are that connection. And I want to find all the things in this miraculous world that are going to allow me to, you know, just blow those states of being, because I think connection and joy, those are states of being. I want to just continue to blow those up within myself and reach higher levels of those. But you can't go there without having that, you know, having to go through the speed bumps and, you know, like walk through the muck. But, you know, I feel like one of the things that I'm here to learn is that softening. You know, I'm the daughter of a Marine, like very much like I will get the work done, and just hard, you know, could be a little hard around the edges. And you've been with me now, BJ, for like over 20 years. So he's seen, like, he, you know, fell in love with that girl with the hard edges, and allowing those to fall away and realizing that when you soften those up, oh my God, you make room because you're not resisting. You're making room for all that amazing stuff to come in.
Yeah.
Because that's not joy. Being hard-lined and pushing back, and it really is. It's vulnerability. I think is a big part of the softening is the vulnerability. And so I used to roll my eyes and think that was weakness, but now I realize that it's like a superhero power.
Yeah, that's such a, oh man, I wish that more people would kind of go into this discussion, because especially in the world of sports, there is so much hesitation to be vulnerable in any way. And I guess that's a way that I do that a little bit differently. I'm not really, I should say, as afraid as other people to be vulnerable, but it's still there for me too. But I think there's this mindset that if you're vulnerable, you are weak, and you're exposing these cracks that people can infiltrate and can use to their advantage against you. And it's just this weird way of thinking that
well, it's kind of
it's like
it's
fear.
It's fear
Yeah.
based.
Oh.
It's fear based.
Yeah.
Like everybody's out to get you.
Right. And that's one of the shifts that I've been trying to make for several years, and I've in no means mastered it yet. But
It's a process.
Yeah, it's a long process. But it's one that I try to open myself up to, and I think there is a lot that has come to me because of my allowing myself to be open. And so, yeah, I don't know like where my train of thought was going with that.
Like
but
what?
It's like
what? What do you think has because of your willingness? Because it's a willingness.
Yeah.
It's not like a skill, right? It's just a willingness. Your willingness to be vulnerable. What's something that has opened up in your life because of it?
Well, I think I've had this willingness in a couple areas of my life, not only with just like being open about injuries, being open about struggles. We tend to present this one image of our lives on social media that's very perfect, and nobody lives that way, but we think people do, and then I don't know, it kind of spirals out of control. But I've tried anyway to share more of my story, try to share some of the struggles along with the triumphs. And a lot of that also stems from, I've talked about this in the past too, but a lot of it stems from like shutting down just who I was for so long. And then it wasn't until I was 21 years old that I came out to my family. I came out to the people around me, and like that, even that in itself at the time was like a huge moment for me. But since then, still, it's been this long process. And it's like, I feel like there's kind of these phases that you go through. Maybe not everyone does, but that I've found myself going through, where it's like, it doesn't all happen at once. And it's, I came out when I was 21, and then when I was 25, like there was another barrier that I broke through. And then like now I'm 30, and like, I don't know. And that's been another thing that I think being vulnerable has kind of gifted me, is like the connections that I've made with so many people from sharing that story on social media. And I just get so many messages from people that are either looking for advice or like parents of young people who are starting to come out, or parents that are like dealing with stuff themselves that they're afraid to share with people. And for some reason they've chosen me. And it's like, that's a really powerful thing to have somebody like open up to you when you don't know them from, a hole in the wall, and just for them to reach out on social media and share their story. It's really empowering on both sides, I think, because it gives me like a deeper purpose, and it gives me more of a reason to continue to want to be open about who I am and what I've gone through and what I hope to achieve in the future in all these different areas of my life. But I think that's been one of the biggest things that being vulnerable has allowed me. It's like these connections with people that I think for a long time, this might surprise you from like sitting down and having a one-on-one conversation with me, but I kind of was this person that people thought of as like hard edges and like very intense. I get that word to describe me a lot, intense. And it's like I had teammates in college who for like 2 years, they just minimal conversations, not for any like different classes maybe. And it's just like, you don't have these super tight connections. And then something forced a connection, whatever it was. Like we roomed together at a meet, or we traveled together and we happened to sit next to each other on the bus or on a plane or something. And it's like, and it forces this conversation. And they're like, wow, you're a lot different than I thought you were. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what do you mean? And and they're like, well, we just thought of you as like this intense, like very serious, very like, I'm like, that's what you thought? It's just, and it's this weird thing. But it's because I built up these walls for so long.
Yeah.
And then whatever it was that instigated me to knock one down for whatever reason on that day. And then it's like, you allow someone in, and then it changes their perception of you, and it changes your perception of them, and it changes.
Right. And it's like everything is energy, right? We learned this from Einstein. And so the walls of energy that you must have had up around you for those 21 years, mm-hmm. That people are going to feel that, right? And so then they say, oh, well, Matt's he's just like a super intense guy. Mm-hmm. And then now they create this persona, right? And this mm-hmm. label around you, which is putting more energy mm-hmm. towards that. And for you to just bust through, I mean, because you couldn't have just like walked around that wall. You had to run straight into that wall and hope that you got to the other side unscathed.
Yeah.
So what, like, could you feel like just this, for the lack of a better word, like untruth kind of building with you? Like, did you, like, because I know I've had moments where I've looked in the mirror, like, 20 something years ago, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Who is this person that you're living? Like, I mean, I've had those moments. Did you have those moments?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think, and it was different in different areas of my life. There was one kind of persona that I had with my family. There was one that I had with close friends. There's one that I had with teammates. There's one that I had with like, like the running community.
That's a lot of work.
And it was, and that is really what I started to realize was just like, how much energy am I draining just trying to keep up? And it wasn't like I wasn't trying to trick people. Like I was never.
And then what if all those people got together in one room? You would have been screwed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was just, and it's, I don't know. It's hard to describe, but I did have a lot of those moments where I was just like, this is just not, this isn't sustainable. I can't live like this. I'm not happy. Like, what's the point? And it was in some of those moments where I would just kind of have these mini breakdowns, and it's like, but there was never the big moment until like when it was on my 21st birthday, and I was just like, I'm going to burst. And it was all this like vault stuffing, as you described it. I like that phrase. It's like, I was stuffing the vault for so long, and then all of a sudden I was like, and the way that I actually thought about it, I don't remember if I wrote in a blog post a couple years ago, I don't remember if I said this or not, but I thought about it as a gift to myself at the time. I was like, this is the best birthday gift I can give my 21-year-old self at the time. And it was on my birthday. And I went over to my aunt's house, and I just like burst, like bawling. And it was like, I couldn't get words out for a while. And then, but it was so, what's the word? Like, it was so cathartic to just like let it out once. And then it was like, oh, okay, this is what it feels like on the other side of those walls.
Yeah. And you did it with like somebody you trusted, somebody you had a strong relationship with. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but you got that taste of what I would consider freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it started there. And then slowly over years, I mean, it was years before I like told everybody, but slowly I expanded that circle, and I broke down more walls, and then tried to let people see me for how I saw me, like at my essence. because I felt like a lot of people didn't see me that way. And that was really unsettling to me, to feel like I was one person and then to feel like everybody else thought that I was someone else, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, and it was a process, and it's at times I feel like I'm still going through it and I'm still like not completely a master of it, but I wouldn't trade it for any other way. Like it's because it's what's brought me to be who I am now. And I don't think it would be, and I don't know what it would be if it wasn't for all that stuff.
Well, it sounds like you would have blown at some point. Like it sounds like you were ready to blow. So it had to happen.
Yeah.
It had to happen. So it probably, I mean, it happened. Timing is always so perfect and divine.
And sometimes we don't need to know why.
No, we don't
Yeah.
know
Why?
why.
Yeah.
You were in the moment, acting in the moment.
Yeah.
And it just came to that feeling, and now you've got this momentum. You're just carrying this momentum forward and forward.
And you don't have to carry all that stuff with you.
Yeah.
Like all that hiding. And now if all those people were in the same room, do you feel like that wouldn't be such a big deal?
Oh yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
Now,
Isn't that a great way to live?
It is. It's
Right?
so,
Like we keep ourselves from our own freedom.
yeah.
It's wild. And did you find that the majority of people who were around you as you were kind of expanding the circle were just like, yeah, we love you, man.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, most people, I think. I think there's always this fear of just not knowing what people are going to think. But I've been fortunate that for the most part, everyone around me has just been like, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
sweet.
okay.
But,
Where you wanna go get coffee?
and that's kind of it,
What's
you
next?
know, and it just
Yes.
stays there. And that's what I hope for everyone. I know that that's not the case, sadly yet. And, you know, I know that not everyone is as accepting, and there's a world of people that mostly hide behind keyboards on their computer, who like to say other things. And there was a big, maybe not big, but there was some stuff floating around when I made some changes earlier this year in the training group that I was training with. There was stuff floating around that it was maybe a new guy that I was dating that interfered and that didn't get along with my coach. I mean, there's just all these rumors flying, and I'm like, what? Where do people come up with this stuff? And it just, I would say it used to really bother me when I was in college, and I would check message boards and like, you know, you look for what people are saying about you after a certain race, whether it went well or not, and just the things that people bring up were just ridiculous. But at the time, it was really hurtful, and now it's like, come on.
Right.
Like I look at it now, and thankfully I'm able to take a step back and be like, what is going on in this person's life that this is their response to how I'm living my life? Like, why does anybody care?
Exactly.
Do you know?
Because their response has actually nothing to do with you.
Right.
And
that's hard to accept that.
Well, that's
and
it's really a compassionate,
yeah.
you know, to not take it personally and really to understand it. Like, what do you mean? Like they're attacking me, or they're saying, how does that have nothing to do with me? But it's what they're seeing in you that's unacceptable.
Right.
Is actually unacceptable within them.
Right. It's filtered through their lens of
Beliefs.
who knows what.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
And underneath it all is fear. It's the fear of not being good enough, fear of not being accepted, fear of not connecting, fear of living truth, right? Living your truth. And I think everybody at this table here has experienced that to our own degree, to our own unique story, because that is what makes us unique here on this earth, is that, you know, you're Matt and I'm Jess and BJ and Harlow, and we're all having our unique journeys here. But what we found over the years of doing this podcast is that the essence of like what it is that we're moving through is so very much exact, because we are all subject to this human condition. We're all subject to not feeling like we're good enough. We're all subject to like, if I open up, I'm going to be so weak.
right.
But you actually, and you've seen it, like now what used to bother you now doesn't. And that's strength. That's self-worth. That's self-belief. And making the changes that you've made, like, and mixing everything up and doing workouts that you're not doing and having this totally transformative year and performances that were not the greatest, but knowing that it's taking you to your greatest.
Yeah.
is amazing.
And I think that that's part of like this undercurrent that has kept me going through this year, is like knowing that I have unfinished business, knowing that I'm making changes, I'm being proactive and trying to make myself better and trying to level up, and trying to just get to this, like, peel back these layers of who I am to get to like the core of my being. And then that is the Matt that's capable of doing the things that I want to do. And I'm still peeling back these layers, and I'm still finding these things that I'm like, oh, that's something that, you know, I want to change. And that's something that I just need to let go of. And once I get under all these layers, I think that that's when I'm going to really be able to like maybe not complete the process, but like get to this level where I'm like, okay, now I can do the things that I'm supposed to do.
Yes. Like that's the essence. That's because underneath all those layers is who you truly are. And who you truly are is just limitless.
Yeah.
And so those folks that are attacking you, or I don't like to use that word, but like projecting, or those people who are in pain and they're suffering, they're putting more layers on.
Yeah.
They're still putting more layers on. It's like, it's like a train wreck. I see it all the time. I'm like, Yeah. But I can't be concerned with that. All I know is that they're exactly where they need to be, because eventually those layers are going to get so heavy that they're going to blow.
Yeah.
And you know, I blew, and now I'm peeling off those layers, and it's like so much lighter. I feel like I'm capable of so much more.
Yeah, everything we have, I was just going to say that everything we have is inside us already. So yeah, you're doing the workouts. Yeah, you're reading the books and all of that. But everything you have, and we talk to this with our athletes a lot, like everything you have is inside. So to a point, stop looking for all the quick fixes that are out there, right? All these things that cause confusion. Social media is such a big one.
Yeah.
But peeling back those layers brings out your true self. And if you keep going in, everything you have is there. The speed you have is there. The sub 2:10 marathon is already there. It's already there. You've already done it.
And it's way sub 2:10, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that you just said that, because Ryan tells me that all the time. Exactly what you, like almost verbatim what you just said, he tells me all the time. He's like, we've already done it. It's just, we just have to go on that day and like do it again and just execute. Yeah. And it's like, and that was a mind shift for me, because that's all along I've been just in this specific example, I've been thinking like, my goal is 210. My goal is 210. Can I do it? I don't know. Am I a 212 guy? Maybe. I don't, and it's like all these thoughts swirling through my head. And when I started working with him, he's like, we've already done it. He's like, it's already been done. And now you just have to go on that day and execute it.
Right.
And that was a cool shift in my mind to try to make. And it's one that I'm still processing. And in my last marathon last month, I ran 212 again. And so I didn't quite have the opportunity to do what I know that I'm capable of doing, but it's like, it didn't make me question whether it's there. It's still like, okay, well now I've set up my next opportunity to try and execute it. And it's like, I'm just moving the focus to that. And
to strengthen the belief system that it's already done allows you to live now and not be in the lack of it. Because if you're in the lack of it, if you're like, oh, it's coming, you're always, you continue to push it further away because you're in the lack of it. You don't have it. And if you don't have it now, you're going to continue to create from this belief that you don't have it.
Right.
But if you create from a belief that it's already done, then you're not in lack of it anymore. So this is something to further process.
Yeah.
It's like the more we focus on what we don't have or what we haven't achieved, we push the possibility of that so much further away than like I was sitting in the hot tub one day at the pool, and I was the only one in there, and I like to sit in the hot tub, and I was in there for like a half an hour, and for like a half an hour I just sat there and said, I love being a millionaire because I can fly my parents to California and I can put them up in an Airbnb and I can fly in first class because I know my dad gets nervous about being away from his doctors, and that feels so good. And as a millionaire, I can go build tiny houses at farm sanctuaries so more people can go and visit animals. And, as a millionaire, I can own land and adopt all the dogs and just getting into that feeling. So what does it feel like to be that person who has reached that sub 210, whatever it is, 201, 202, 203, whatever it is that you want? How does that feel? And then practice that feeling.
Right.
Allow that feeling in. And that feeling is like the opposite of unworthiness. It's the opposite of lack. You're preparing yourself for what you've already done.
Yeah.
And you're not in lack of it anymore. So it's going to be closer. It's going to be sooner.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go 212 to 211 to 210 you might go 212 to, 205. Anything is possible.
I feel like it's going to be a big jump.
It's going to be a huge jump. It's going to be amazing.
So what does it feel like?
Yeah. So
What
does that feel like?
That's where I'm finding myself right now. And I'm still, because that was a new mindset for Ryan to.
That's so cool.
Yeah, to bring to my
Ryan
attention, and to
Hall.
bring to me. Yeah, and that's, and he ran 204 when he was competing. So he knows.
He knows what it feels like.
Yeah. And that was the approach that he had with his own running. And that's what he's instilling in me now. And I have not perfected it. I'm still, it's like a work in progress. And I'm trying to figure out how to let that happen, how to make that happen. But I feel like I am getting so close to being the person that can do the things that I want to do. And my thinking is if I just keep focusing on being the person that is like the way that I would need to be to do the things that I want to do, then I can just let it come.
Exactly.
I can just let it come to me.
Exactly.
And so that's where I am now. And it's this like process of, and it's, I don't know. It's a
level.
process.
It's
And
super
a
high
total
level because
process.
you don't have attachment. You're not attaching to every single thing that you're doing is going to lead you there. You're in the process.
Yeah.
Attaching to that, whatever it is going to cause a lot of suffering, right? A lot of wishing.
Or I still didn't do it.
Yeah.
I
Right.
still
A lot
didn't
of
do
disappointment.
A lot of
Yes.
disappointment. So you're
and
getting
that's not how that guy feels.
Right.
That guy is super fulfilled.
Yeah.
He's like, what's next?
Yeah.
Bring it on. What's next? So what is next?
Oh gosh. I'll be running another marathon, in a couple months. So just trying to get my legs back under me, trying to recover from the last one. And, I don't know. I have some exciting opportunities. I can't really say much about yet, but, there's some exciting stuff in the works. So it's
so cool.
Yeah. It's a fun process to navigate and stressful at times, but, I'm just kind of focusing on being like present with myself and controlling what I can control, and just having the confidence that other things are going to come together as they're supposed to in their own time. And that's kind of where I'm settling right now.
Are the
letting myself be right now.
Are the Olympics part of the
hopefully.
end goal?
Yeah, hopefully.
So 2020 and
yeah,
Tokyo.
so the 2020 trials in Atlanta are at the end of February in 2020. So that's kind of one of the next big goals. Of course, I have some things I'd like to do along the route to that. But then, if all things go the way that I think they can, then hopefully I'll find myself in Tokyo as well.
So for people who don't know how the Olympic trials works, how does that work?
So basically, in the couple years leading up to the Olympic trials, there's a qualifying window, and you have to run. To be honest, I don't know exactly what the time is. I think it's either 2:18 or 2:19. You have to run under that to get into the trials. And then on the day of the Olympic trials, which is February 29th of 2020, you have to be top 3 that day in that race. So it doesn't matter. You could have run 2:04 going into the race, and if you don't finish in the top 3 on that day, you don't make the team. So that's kind of the way the U.S. does it for their qualifying system. And I'd say most of the time it sends our best team to the Olympics. So that's the goal. Is I've qualified for the trials, so now have a few more things I'd like to do along the way, and then in February of next year, I'm just aiming for one of those Olympic spots.
So February 2020,
correct,
is going to be the Atlanta Marathon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's they create a new course. It's not in conjunction. Sometimes it's in conjunction with another big marathon. In 2020, it's not. It's just going to be held in Atlanta on a new course that they developed just for the trials. And then, the top 3 people, men and women, the top 3 that finish that day will go and represent the U.S. in Tokyo.
You mean you
later.
and 2 other people?
That's the goal.
And Gwen.
That's how I'm living it in my mind.
Yes.
Damn straight you are.
And that's how I'm living it for the next year. So.
So I have a question for you, because I've been really practicing this very much the same thing, not to go to the 2020 Olympics, but my own Olympics in my own life. And I have found that I'll get it tries to sneak its way in, like this resistance of, what is it again that you're practicing? Like who is it that you're practicing feeling? Like you're feeling like that person at the end of the finish line of whatever this epic thing that you're going to do. And I found like that's where my unworthiness will show up. Mm-hmm. And then, so I just say like, cool, thank you. I see you. I see you're trying to protect me, but I'm okay. Like, and so that's kind of my technique is I lovingly dismiss those egoic thoughts that that want me to go into the darkness, and then I come back and whatever that is that I need to focus on to be into that feeling. But have you experienced that too? I
have. Yeah, I did a lot of visualization before CIM, where every single day when I was running.
What's CIM?
Oh, sorry, California International Marathon.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the marathon that I ran in December, just a couple weeks ago. And I would run this bike path right by the house quite a lot. And every single day when I was finishing my run, I'd be visualizing what it would be like to win, what it would be like to run the time I want to run, and how it's going to feel, and all these things that we're talking about. And I did have some moments where those were the times when it would creep in that I wasn't good enough. And it was this weird, like counterintuitive thought process, because I'm like, no, I'm thinking about how good it's going to feel when I do it. But then I think, like we were just talking about, it almost brought on the realization that I haven't done it. And so those were kind of like you were just saying, those were the moments that it would kind of, this doubt would creep in. Well, what if I can't? What is that going to feel like? And so, and I still like, that's something I'm still working on. And that's something that I still have to acknowledge and have to accept that's still here right now.
Oh,
and
it's all, as long as you're in a body, my friend.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to, and who knows if we're supposed to like push that away, or just, this is like still what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, like, if we push it away, we're resisting it. And
right.
What we resist will persist.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
If we stuff it in the vault, it's going to fester.
Yeah.
It's not going to heal.
Yeah. So I guess I'm trying to figure out like how to
such a
like
pain in
live
the
with
butt.
it, but
Yes.
also not live with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But not,
Like I don't want to resist it, but I want to.
you don't want to live from it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's still that's like where I'm finding myself right now.
And all those answers are inside of you. So
Yeah.
keep like,
Keep putting yourself in those positions.
Yeah,
too.
and keep being present. Maybe that's just stopping and taking a breath, because the breath is always happening right now. Like that's your instantaneous anchor to presence. And when we're present, we are tapped into that part of us that's underneath all those layers.
Yeah.
And so it's constant. And the challenges get bigger, like, because you're really, what I would consider, you're really doing the true mental training at this point. Like this is real mental restructuring and literally like reorganizing of your DNA and neural pathways in your brain. This is high level stuff. And so the challenges are still going to happen, but you're going to get more skillful at it.
Right.
and figuring it out, like you're like, I'm still figuring this out. Like you're still going to be figuring it out, but you're going to continue to kind of get like another train station up and another train station up, and then at some point you'll see it. And like our yoga teacher, he'll say, like, he just recognizes, he goes, oh, you lovely little bastard. Like, I see you. I see what you're trying to do. Because you really do, if you get mad at it, it's the same energy.
Right.
So you want to just kind of love it and hold it. And because it's like a little baby. Like it needs to feel like it's still close to you, but you don't have to live from it.
Right.
So it's a finesse. Like that's what our meditation teacher would say that. He's like, you're just finding your finesse. Like you're getting that finesse, and that finesse there's no hard lines with that. Everything it's always very fluid. It's always very fluid. And another thing that's always fluid is truth. Truth is always fluid. Like we never have to hide from it. That's why you can be in the room with all those people now.
Yeah.
Because you're in the truth. And so that's the same thing. Like you'll just stay fluid with it, and you'll notice it, and some days will have more of an effect on you, and some days it won't. But you know that it's just that shadow self. That's all it is. It's just that shadow self showing up, and that shadow self is always in fear. So it wants to protect you. It thinks it's protecting you. But it's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I got this.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
I can take it from here.
Yeah, I can take it from here. And there's a great book called Big Magic. Big Magic? Who wrote that? The woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. She wrote this book called Big Magic.
Elizabeth Gilbert.
And she's talking about writing in it, but you listen to it as like a quote unquote non-writer, even though you're a great writer anyway. And there's so many things to take away in it. And she talks about fear, and fear being really the base of those kinds of voices. And she says, like, I just look at fear and I say, okay, fear, like we're going for a ride, and this ride is life. And I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but she's like, come on in. Like, I see you. You get in the car. You're getting in the back seat. Right? You're getting in the back seat. You cannot touch the radio, and you will never get the keys.
Yeah.
But you can come. I see you. And it's redeveloping that relationship with it, because it's not going to go away. It's like stress. Stressors in our life are going to continue to be there. It's our relationship to what's happening where we have the control to change.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing about that voice in our head. I can't wait to look at your bookshelf.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there.
I bet there is some good stuff in there. All right, let's wrap this up. This is amazing.
Do you have a mindfulness practice? Do you have a time that you...
Not a set practice that I'm doing right now. No, I was using Headspace for a little while, an app on the
cool.
phone.
Awesome.
And I was just I struggled with it at first, to be honest, like just finding a time to like focus in on what I was trying to do in that moment, and not think about what I have to get from the grocery store and what I have to do later, and taking Harlow for a run and doing this and like I would struggle.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, and that was really hard, and so it's something that I'm still working on. But I at this time I don't have a set practice with it.
Do you feel running brings a little bit of calmness?
It does.
Clarity.
Yeah, I guess if I did have a set time, it would be my runs.
Yeah.
Like for the past 3 weeks, I've had some people staying at my house, so I've been running mostly with other people. And I find that a lot of times when I'm doing that, I'm not as mindful, because I'm not with my own thoughts. I'm with the conversation. I'm with, whatever we have
fully
going on.
engaged
I'm engaged with in the relationships with the people that I'm with, and I'm not as engaged with my relationship with myself in those moments. But I also do really value my alone time, and I do, and I think we talked about this way when we started the conversation. But I really value that time, and so those are the moments where, even though it's not like a dedicated practice of meditation, those are the moments where I'm trying to like foster this kindness to myself, and like, just continuing to work on like the self that I want to be. And those are kind of, I guess, like, again, even though it's not like a specific dedicated practice, like those are kind of the times where I feel like I'm closest to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've tried to really make mindfulness my life. And so what I found when I'm with groups of people, because I run a lot on the trails with a group, and what I find is when I'm in that conversation, I'll find myself like, it's like I'm in the conversation, but I'm not in the feeling, right? So I'll start to like feel into what's under the words, and I'll feel the connection that I have with those other people. So it's like I'm having the conversation. Nobody knows I'm doing it. I'm having the conversation, and I'm feeling like my appreciation for that person next to me, and for the connection that, that I get to run with these people, and just feeling the connection that you get in a group. So you can still kind of take that mindfulness by just having like a little dive under the surface and get into like, how does it feel to be connecting with these guys right now on this run, and how like we're in joy, like we're having a good conversation, and getting into those states of being. So I think you can really find mindfulness anywhere in your life.
Especially in Flagstaff, which maybe you guys don't have as much of a sense of that yet, just like with this immense like beauty that we have here. It's so easy to find mindfulness wherever you go here. And that's one of the things I love about it so much.
It's beautiful like environmentally. And then I know that just from what I know of it, there's a beautiful, like strong community here as well. And I think there's a strong yoga community here. And
there is.
Yeah. So you're living in that energy. And then, you know what? I wanted to close it off with one question on flow. We had talked about this, like, have you felt, well, I guess my first question is like, to you, like we hear about the flow state, right? Like, flow state, whatever. Do you feel like you've experienced that?
I do. Yes.
And what is that?
For me, I have noticed it most in a running context. And it's a couple of moments stand out where it's like I'm in a workout or I'm in a race, and it just is like everything is effortless. I feel like I'm floating. It's just like it's just one of those times when it feels like all the pieces came together that day, and it's just like it's all working. Everything is the way it's supposed to be at that time, and it's all, I don't know, the word that always comes to my mind is effortless, but it just like it just flows. It just is. And that's when I've felt it. And there've been a couple of races where I've felt it, one that really stands out, and then a handful of workouts. And those are the times that I feel it the most. And so it's, maybe I've had it also in other areas of my life, but not that I've like had a conscious awareness of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure that it has happened, but it's like, I haven't realized it at the time. And then, the running context just stands out to me the most, because those are like, we think about running a lot of times as like this grind and how hard it is, and the things we're working towards, and all this process, this journey. And the times where I've really felt and acknowledged the flow are like the times where all of that has fallen away. It's like a deep breath of fresh air, and it's just like this sigh in a good way. And it's like, oh man, that was good. Like that was really good. And it's just this feeling that kind of washes over you. And it still can be, I don't know, it still can be hard, but I don't know how to describe it.
How would you go about like bringing more flow into your life? How do you think? Because I know you probably want that, right?
Yeah,
like
I would think we would all want that.
Yeah, because we got a question about that. We addressed it on the podcast that we launched on Monday. But I want to ask you that. Like, we had an athlete who's totally legit athlete, and she wants more flow.
Yeah, I wish I knew. I mean,
what do you think the essence of the flow is?
Well, so I think that's part of what I'm working towards, and what I've been working towards for the last, I talked about all these things that I've gone through in the last year, and these pieces that I've been peeling back, and these layers have been unfolding. And I think that's part of how I'm going to find more flow. I think getting to my own essence is going to lead me to the essence of these things that I'm trying to achieve, and these pursuits that I'm taking on. And I don't think that without finding that within myself, I don't think that it's going to come very easily from anywhere else. And so that's kind of what I'm focusing on now as my own way of trying to find those moments more often. But also just acknowledging too that it's like part of life that maybe they just like, we just have to let them come for like when they do and appreciate it when it does happen, if that makes sense. And like not try and force something.
Yeah, you can't force flow.
Yeah.
But I think you've got it, and I think that was amazing advice. Everybody who's listening is just keep peeling back, keep allowing those layers, because you don't have to peel them back.
Right.
They will peel back on their own, and some of them, it's like, oh man, it's like peeling back like a really fresh wound where there's still like stuff stuck to this. You're like, oh, I didn't think I got that part of the wound on the sticky part, but it is, and it's like ripping off, and you're kind of cringing. But if you can just allow that to happen, you will have more flow in your life.
Yeah. Was there anything else you guys came up with that as a way of like trying to find more flow?
Well,
or like that was kind of the biggest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you're one word for what you're describing to me is presence. Because if you think about like a donut. Okay.
Love donuts.
Okay, I do too. I have like a whole new, I think our listeners know about my donut situation at this point. But if you think about a donut, right? And the ring of the donut is, it's the ego. So it's all those, it's the thoughts, it's the hard work, it's the goals. It's not that the goals are ego, but it's all those things that kind of make things tough, right? And then in the center of the donut, like the donut hole is you. Right? And then everything around the donut is the totality of all that is. So when we focus all of our awareness, not on the donut, but in that donut hole, like on us, on presence, that donut falls away and we are now welcomed into the totality of all things, which is exactly what you were talking about, when everything is like the trail or the road and the trees, and you hear birds that feel like they're so far off. How am I even hearing them? Yeah. And it's like you're welcomed in to this higher level of experiencing in life. And so does that make sense, right? Like the donut kind of falls away.
Yeah.
And those are all the thoughts and the busyness and the chatter and the this is hard and my leg hurts and oh God, is that going to be an injury? And all that stuff that falls away. The doing falls away, and then you just become a part of the activity fully.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. I think that's good. How do people follow you? Because we want to know about all this.
Yeah.
And Harlow.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all those things. And I have a website too, mattllano.com, that I don't update nearly as much as I should, but the social media channels, you can find me on any of those, and I share a lot of different aspects of myself on those channels. So I think that's probably the best way.
And what about Harlow?
Harlow's on Instagram too. And you'd probably be easiest to just find her through mine, but she has her own account, Harlow Up High.
I love it.
Yeah. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is an amazing conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let us know what you thought of the show. We love you guys. We love our guests. We love this entire community and the collective movement to create a better world. And just like Matt talks about in this conversation, there is a light within us, but it's covered up in our layers. Keep allowing your layers to peel off and watch your most amazing life be revealed. And it sounds nice and easy, but I'm sorry to say it's not. It takes bravery and courage, but all of that is already inside of you. Everything you need is already inside. So what is it that you dream of? What is it that keeps knocking at your door of hope? Open it up, welcome it in, and be free of the limits that no longer apply when we live in the light.